Hello and welcome to another episode of the Agency Leadership Podcast. I'm Chip Griffin.
And I'm Gini Dietrich.
Gini, the digital agency is dead. It's yet another thing that's dead because we just love in this world that we're in to just have posts and articles and episode titles that something is dead. So why not?
Yes, true.
Right after this. So it really does amaze me how many times people are like, Twitter is dead, social media is dead, the press release is dead.
PR is dead. Everything is dead. You're all dead.
If I didn't know, people in our world, they just seem to like writing obituaries for different things in business. And most of them just don't come true. Radio and TV are still not dead.
Still not dead.
People still listen to the radio. They still watch over-the-air TV.
They do. Yeah. Yes, indeed.
But this episode is inspired by an article that appeared in the Wall Street Journal over the holiday break, and it was, "Will 2024 mark the end of the digital agency?" And so the whole thrust of the article basically is that calling yourself a digital agency no longer works, and agencies need to be more robust and diversified than it. Digital is sort of table stakes. We'll include a link in the show notes to the article for folks who want to read it, but I think I've, in general, encapsulated the overall theme of the article. And so I thought it would be helpful for us to talk about this whole idea of, calling yourself a digital agency and what it means, and is it still relevant today, and what are some broader lessons we might take out of this?
Yeah, I think, this goes back to the early days of social media when agencies started calling themselves social media agencies. And I remember at the time, a really good friend of mine took her whole PR firm and said, "We're only doing social media." And I was like, "It's so short-sighted. Please don't do that." And she was out of business 4 years later. So it's just the idea of hooking onto a trend that's available at the time and changing your messaging and your brand and your vision to match that is what's short-sighted. Adding that in as a service is certainly what you should do, but changing the whole idea. We're now a digital agency. We're now a social media agency. We're now a content agency. We're now an AI agency. That's what's short-sighted, because all of this changes and it evolves. And I don't think that's any surprise to anybody, because we've all watched it happen in the last 15 years. Even if you're new to the industry, you've watched it happen in the last 3 years, right? Like that is the certain, is things are going to change and evolve. So it's more about, we're not a digital agency or a social media agency or an AI agency or a crypto agency. We are an agency that does digital or social or AI or crypto or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, and the digital wave is certainly one that's been around for a long time. It has had more staying power than most of the others. And so using that moniker for your agency has frankly worked, right? Because it has created the impression with clients in particular that you are at the cutting edge. It may or may not be true, right? There are plenty of non-innovative digital agencies out there. And so, and part of the problem with digital agencies is that it really, as time has gone on, more of the things that a digital agency did are now being done by other agencies. A lot of PR agencies are into things like social media and SEO and things like that in the past would have been the realm of quote unquote digital. And I remember 10 or 15 years ago, I was helping an agency set up a digital team. And I said, one of your primary goals should be to work yourself out of existence. You should be working to try to increase the overall knowledge of the team and to integrate digital with everything that you do, such that a digital focused team is no longer even necessary. Because that's how you know you've succeeded. That is because ultimately, and I would say this to any of our more traditional PR agency owners who are listening, if you own an agency and you're doing nothing in the digital realm, if you're just doing old school media relations, you really need to be looking at how to integrate more of these things into what you do, looking at the peso model in particular to make sure that you have things that help to make you relevant, but also help to make sure that you can produce better results for your clients. Right. Because it's becoming increasingly difficult to do so if you're not doing anything at all that's even remotely digital. And
sorry.
Oh,
And
go ahead.
so I was just to say, I think one of the biggest challenges you have as a traditional agency is what you're doing is brand awareness. And brand awareness is important, but it's incredibly challenging to measure. And so as you think about evolving your agency, you have to find the things that you can do to measure the results, the work that you're doing to the results that matter to the organization. And if you're not using digital anything, it's challenging now. It's going to be even more challenging and will prove that you will be extinct or dead at some point because clients aren't going to put up with it anymore. They know that they can measure every little thing that happens, and brand awareness isn't going to cut it anymore.
Right. And I think your earlier point about being careful about riding trends overall and branding yourself as, the trend du jour agency, right? And so that's, digital has certainly been one of those. Social media was one of those. I
Yep.
remember 5 years ago, I had a lot of agency owners coming to me telling me that they wanted to have a cannabis agency,
Right. Yep.
right?
Yes.
We've seen crypto agencies.
Yes.
I mean, how'd that work out for all those crypto agencies? Not real
Yep.
well. Not real
Not very well.
I mean, maybe crypto comes back someday. Who knows? But it's certainly not the kind of space that you want to be focused on by and large today. And I think it's really important to have a focus as an agency that is very clear about who you're serving and how you're servicing them. But it should be based on what you're good at, what you know. It shouldn't be based on, I mean, anytime I have an agency owner come to me and say, well, what sector should I be going after today? I always, start yelling, time out. No. Because that's how you end up trying to ride some wave.
Right.
Which if you recognize it as a wave and you're willing to understand that wave will go away, okay, right? You're making a rational decision. I've done that in the past. I've said, okay, at the start of the Twitter era, sure, we'll do a digital thing that's focused on social media, but we know it's going to die. We know it's not going to last forever. Unfortunately, most people who are going down this path don't see it that way. They see it as a gift that will keep on giving.
Well, I think part of the challenge, I mean, this really reminds me of there were like a handful of what I would call Twitter influencers right when Twitter launched. And I can name some of them by name right now, and you will go, who? Because they became really popular really fast and became some of the first online influencers who were not celebrities, that were paid to speak, that were paid to write books, that were like all of this stuff. And so there was this almost instant overnight fame, if you will. And people saw that happen and were like, shoot, I was too late to the Twitter game. So now I'm going to be early to the Vine game, or what was the podcasting one?
Clubhouse
game, or
yes.
The TikTok game, or now the artificial game. And everybody tries to mirror that kind of success. But the point is that, to your point, it is a wave and it is going to go away. And you're not going to continue to have that really quick flash in the pan success and, for lack of a better term, fame, because that's just impossible. So I say this all the time, both personally and professionally. It's consistency that matters. So be consistent, understand who your agency is, what it stands for, what your vision is. Certainly add this other stuff in as services that you offer, but don't take that all and rearrange everything to try to have this quick overnight success that's almost impossible to achieve.
Yeah, and really you need to be focused first and foremost on who you're serving and the results you're producing. Only
right.
After that do you worry about the tactics. If you are a tactics first agency, whether that's digital or AI or social media or whatever, that's where you start to run into problems. Because if those things fall out of favor, or if they're not as effective, or so many different things can happen, and then you lose your direction. If you understand who you're trying to help and what you're trying to help them do, then you can figure out which levers to pull, and you can evolve more intelligently, and you're not having to reinvent yourself every 2 years. Because if you were a cannabis agency 5 years ago and then you became a crypto agency and now you're becoming an AI agency, you're not able to build any staying power.
Right.
But if you're riding these waves, that's where you end up being. And we're seeing that a lot with people who are fixating on AI today. And
Yep.
you know, we've already had an episode about that, but I want to continue to beat that drum.
Yep.
Stop focusing on AI to the exclusion of other things. AI is important. It plays a role in everything that we do. It is not something that you should reinvent your life around at this point in time.
No, and I think to the point that you started with, which is this Wall Street Journal article, is the digital agency dead? That's the whole thing, right? Like, so eventually the big business publications, the big consumer national publications are going to start saying this is no longer a thing. So now when a client is looking for an agency, they're not going to be looking for a digital agency anymore. They're going to be looking for an agency that provides the peso model, full service, whatever it happens to be. That's what they're looking for, because that's the kind of stuff that has staying power. It's the kind of stuff that shows that the agency and the people that work there have expertise in something and can build a program or a campaign for an organization that has lasting power. And certainly, yes, let's add in AI. We've done that, right? Let's add in content marketing. Let's add in social media, whatever it happens to be, add that in for sure. But don't lead with that. Lead with what you're really good at doing, because that's what's going to have the staying power.
Right. And even with digital, I mean, look, at the end of the day, nobody hires a digital agency purely for the digital. They hire the digital agency for something else. And the problem is that so many people, I mean, if I ask 20 people what a digital agency is, I'll probably get 20 different answers.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Because for some people, it's a web dev shop. For some people,
Yep.
it's an infrastructure shop. For some people, it is social media. For some people, it is Google Ads and things like that. For some, it's SEO. There are so many different things that it means to different people that it has lost its value from that perspective. And whatever little bit of extra shine you got from calling yourself a digital agency 5 or 10 years ago, that is gone. And I think that's the point of the journal article. And so you need to be thinking about digital for what purpose? Is it for PR? Is it for marketing? Is it for sales? Is it for advertising? And I think if you start thinking more in those terms, you'll be able to position yourself more effectively with the right kind of clients for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really about, I mean, to your point, who are you trying to serve, and what are you an expert in doing? And when you can combine those two things, you can add in this other stuff, right? And clients are going to see you as the expert, which is,
right.
I mean, people say to me all the time, well, of course you're seen as the expert because you created the peso model, or you wrote a book, or whatever the excuse is. Yes, you're right. And I've been doing the same thing for 15 years. That's why clients see us as experts, because we've been doing the same thing in my agency for 15 years. We've added in content. We've added in social. We even have added in Google ads and social media ads. We've added in native advertising, like we've influencer marketing. We've done this over the years, but we've always focused on doing communications. That's what we do. And so when a client calls us or a prospect calls us, they know they're calling us because they need communications help. And whatever that definition is for them is what is how I will go through the new business meeting with them to figure out what that is. But they know that that's what they're calling us for. They're not calling us for content help. They're not calling us because they need social media help. They're not calling us because they're trying to figure out artificial intelligence. They're calling us because they need help communicating. That's why they call.
Well, and frankly, nobody is an expert because of the tagline for their agency. Calling yourself a digital agency does not an expert make you.
Make you an expert.
You are an expert because of the thought leadership you're doing and what you're putting out. You're an expert because of what you share in those meetings with prospects. You're an expert because of the questions you ask in those meetings with prospects. Right. That's how you show your expertise. Yes. It's not by saying, we are the best digital agency in North America or anything like that. I mean, that just, so what? Right. I mean, I think back to what is it, the movie Elf that we rewatched over the holidays.
Such a good movie.
And in there, there's a diner that has the sign, best coffee or something like that. World's best coffee.
And he's like,
and so they go in there and it's nasty coffee because anybody can say they have the world's best coffee. There is no actual title for the world's best coffee.
Correct.
There just isn't. And if there was, they'd probably
Such a
charge
great
you to
name.
get that, right? You know, it's just like all awards is pay for play, I'm sure. It just, but it's the
So
same
funny.
thing. Calling yourself a digital agency doesn't make you the expert. It doesn't mean that you can provide the solution. But yes, with clients, it has made a difference. Frankly, in agencies getting acquired, it has made a difference.
Sure.
Because
Sure.
even people who should know better, i.e., the owner of larger agencies that don't have digital, they look at someone who calls themselves a digital agency and they apply in their mind a price premium to buying it. That was dumb. They're now waking up to it. This Wall Street Journal helps contribute, or Wall Street Journal article contributes to helping the understanding of how silly it always has been. And it's only going to get worse going from here. So stop doing it. Come up with a real clear message for what you do, who you serve, and stop trying to ride some wave of attention, whether it's a wave that's lasted for 15 or 20 years or one that, like Clubhouse, lasted about 15 or 20 minutes.
I was going to say seconds, but minutes is probably more accurate.
I mean, the success of Clubhouse lasted less long than one of the Clubhouse sessions I sat in. I mean, it was just awful.
Yes.
Absolutely awful.
Yeah.
Don't understand it.
Yep.
But congratulations to all the agencies who went out and hired Clubhouse experts.
Oh,
God,
man.
I loved it. That was great. You know, like 2 days after Clubhouse comes out, we're opening a Clubhouse practice in our agency. Why?
I'm telling you, it's because people are like scared they're going to be left behind. And you're not going to be left behind. You may see people out there that seemingly have some success from it, but I guarantee you, pay attention right now to who's all in on artificial intelligence, whether or not you believe that they can do it. 2 years from now, I want you to write this down right now. Write down a name or an agency name or a business name. And 2 years from now, I want you to go back to it and see if they still exist. Because I guarantee 90% of them, 95% of them will not. Will not.
Well, and I mean, you know, this goes back to my days in tech and doing angel investing and that kind of stuff. The whole idea of first mover advantage is so far overblown.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If you look at some of the most successful businesses out there, they were not the first movers.
Right.
If you look at Microsoft, MS-DOS was basically a rework of a previous product that someone else had put out. If you look at Apple, almost every single product that Apple has put out has been a perfection of something that was already being done. You know, you look at the Mac and everybody's like, oh my God, you know, they came out with the Mac. Yeah, they came out with the Mac, which was a copy of something that had already been done at an enterprise level before. They just made it consumer accessible.
Right. Yes.
Very different than being a true first mover. So being a first mover, it might be nice for a few days, for a few weeks, for even a few years. But ultimately, you need to build something sustainable. And part of the reason why so many agency owners come to you and me stressed out is because they haven't built something sustainable. They rode some kind of wave, whether it was a trend wave or a wave of business that they took in, carrying over from a previous business or something, and they just never figure out how to make it consistent and sustainable. And that's what I would encourage everybody to do rather than worrying about what tagline they're applying to their agency or what category agency they are.
Yes. You said this earlier. Who do you serve and what are you an expert in? If you do those two things, it won't matter what wave we're in because you can apply those waves to your business every single time, but maintain the vision of who you are and what you stand for and who you serve and what they stand for, and you will be able to survive every single one of these evolutions.
Yep, because clients want results. That's all they want.
That's right. That's all they want.
Right. Right.
Yes.
They're not buying a fancy logo from you or a name.
Right.
They want some kind of result, and if you can figure out what those results are and deliver them, you're golden.
Yeah. I actually, right before the holidays, had a meeting with a client to go through our plan for this year. And we went through all of the results. And because we have the data to back up everything that we do, I was able to say, we now know that after a year of working with you, that if we do X, we'll be able to deliver Y. And at the end of the meeting, the client said, you guys are so expensive, but I know that I'm going to get the results. So let's do it. And it's because we spent an entire year, 1 full year, collecting data and making educated decisions based on that. So he doesn't care. Like, he knows that he's going to pay us more money because we asked for significantly more. But because he's going to do that, we're going to be able to do X in results. And he knows that. And I'm confident in saying that because we have the data to prove it. So that's where you have to get. And then you can add in, like we've tested all sorts of things. We actually started, the client wanted to do a live podcast and do it on Twitter. That lasted about 20 seconds, right? Because that was right about the same time that Elon Musk took over and everything went to hell. So we very quickly pivoted. But the point is that you're able to pivot and evolve and change if you know what the vision is and what you're trying to achieve by demonstrating results. You can add in every single tactic that you want to try in that area.
I think that is a great note to end on, if for no other reason than the power just flickered here. So
I just saw it. I was like, uh-oh.
I think the snow outside may be getting too heavy for the power lines, and so we may not be able to continue this recording if we don't stop soon. So with that will draw to an end this episode of the Agency Leadership Podcast. I'm Chip Griffin.
I'm Gini Dietrich.
And it depends.